Welcome into Locked On Phillies. What a huge win for the Philadelphia Phillies last night over the NL East rival New York Mets. We'll break down everything from the huge comeback, including Alec Bohm getting caught on camera saying something he probably wished he didn't. All of that in a packed episode of Locked On Phillies.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Phillies your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. I am your host of Locked On Phillies, Connor Thomas. Been talking Phillies baseball for years over on the radio at 97.5 The Fanatic. Now happy to be here with you. And what a great day to be here with you after what happened last night. Now, last night's game between the Philadelphia Phillies and the visiting New York Mets, the first NL East matchup for the Phils this year, it wasn't all pretty. In fact, you know that old expression about the good, the bad, and the ugly? Well, we had all of that in last night's game, so that's how I'm going to break down today's show for you. We're going to talk good, we're going to talk bad, we're going to talk ugly, and we're going to go in that order. So first, I always like to start with the positives. If you've listened to Locked On Phillies, you know I'm a positive guy. It's my default. It's how I like to be. I like to be a happy person. I like to be an excited person. And man, I'm going to have to back up from the microphone at points in recording this for you. Because what a win last night. The Philadelphia Phillies just come back against the New York Mets. They looked like they had absolutely no chance in the game. They didn't score until the bottom of the eighth inning. But the good news is they did all the scoring they needed in that frame. What a comeback for the Phillies. We're going to talk, when we talk a little bit about the bad, about the start for Ranger Suarez. He struggled. He had trouble finding the zone. He got in some deep counts early. He did not make it out of the third inning. And it was unfortunate for a kid trying to make another great year happen after coming off of one of the best years in all of baseball. Suarez, it's just his first start, and he had issues coming into the country with a visa. There was all kinds of issues with that because of COVID problems, so he's a little bit behind schedule. It's why he wasn't totally stretched out by the time he was ready for his first start of the season yesterday, so he'll work back into it. I'm not overly concerned. He just didn't look all that great. The fielding issues with Alec Bohm and everything that went on with that circus, we will talk about that in the next segment, break everything down there because that deserves talking about and what he said on camera. But really, the long and short of the start of the game was the Phillies were not good. They weren't good defensively. They weren't good at the plate. They weren't looking like a team that had any business being in the game with the New York Mets. And I was in the press box last night, and I was looking around, looking at the people sitting next to me saying, is this just me, or does this feel like it was a 3-0 lead after the first? Does it feel like they're down like 13-0? And everyone was kind of like, yeah, this game feels really far out of reach. Now, the Phils got a couple breaks. Taijuan Walker, the starter for the Mets, came out of the game after only 2 innings pitched because of some right shoulder irritation was what it was listed as. That's not great for the Mets because they've already missed Jacob deGrom and will continue to miss him until he comes back from his injury issues. Now could be down another starter in Taijuan Walker. And then they had one of the bullpen pitchers that came in, had to be removed due to injury as well. So losing 2 pitchers on the night, not great at all. That's the Mets' problem, though. The bottom line is the Phillies got into the 7th inning. They give up a run in the top of the 7th to the Mets. And once that lead is extended to 4-0, kind of felt like what we saw against Oakland in the final game of that series. Oakland was up 4-0, got 2 runs of insurance in the 8th inning, or top of the 9th, rather. And then the Phils come up in the bottom of the 9th, and Gene Segura hits a solo shot, but never get closer than 4-1. It's like, wow, are they going to do this again? Are they going to get shut out by the Mets? What's going on with the bats? This, that, and the other thing. Well, it only takes 1/2 of an inning to change the entire narrative around a game. So let's pick it up in the bottom of the 8th inning and go through what exactly happened to allow the Phils to make this huge comeback. First of all, to even get there, to get to the 8th inning, we're skipping a huge step. Nick Nelson was awesome in long relief. He was amazing out of the pen for the Phillies because when your starter goes ahead and is not going to get you any more than what Ranger Suarez gave you last night, which his final line was 2 2/3 innings pitched, 3 earned runs, 5 hits given up. A little bit unlucky with the defense, but when you only get 2 2/3 out of your starter, you need someone in the pen to step up. Listen to this line from Nick Nelson, who was shoving, sitting about 96 with some nasty breaking stuff last night from the right side. 4 innings pitched in relief. Yeoman's work. 1 hit, 1 run, 1 earned given up, only 1 walk, 2 Ks, so he wasn't really striking all that many guys out, but he was pitching to contact, he was hitting his spots, and he got through 4 innings of work, keeping that lead at 3-0. And then that 1 run that he allowed to score was actually an inherited run from not inherited from Seranthony Dominguez, but he walked a runner in his walked a batter in his last batter faced, and then Seranthony Dominguez came in and unfortunately allowed that runner to score there that extended the lead to 4-0. So Nick Nelson really just an incredible outing there. Seranthony Dominguez, not bad. He gave up that 1 lone run, but he did inherit a base runner, so it's hard to ever fault pitchers for that. And then a shutdown from Brad Hand after the comeback. But let's do the comeback first before we get to the closing effort by Mr. Hand in his first save opportunity here as a member of the Philadelphia Phillies. Let's talk through what happened in the 8th inning. So Alec Bohm, who had trouble earlier in the game, he hasn't gotten out yet this year, and that didn't change in the bottom of the 8th. He walked with no outs. And then Johan Camargo pinch hits for Matt Vierling, who still doesn't have a hit on the year. Cost me a little bit of money because I bet him to have 2+ hits last night. Did not come through there. And Johan Camargo has a pinch hit single to right, moving Bohm up to third, who was great on the base pass for that instance. Camargo at first, Bohm at third, Kyle Schwarber at the dish. Is Schwarber going to come up clutch? Well, he grounded into a fielder's choice to second, but he beat out the throw to first, which ended up being a huge part of this rally. And Alec Bohm scored. Johan Camargo got thrown out at second. So now you got Schwarber at first with 1 out. And who comes up? Just the best catcher in baseball. Comes up in a 4-1 game, deposits one into the left field seats, an absolute bomb, over 400 feet to straightaway left. He knew it the whole way. He turns to the dugout yelling. Very, very uncharacteristic of JT Realmuto to get that fired up, but he knew it was a big spot. 410 feet exactly on the homer there, and he makes it a 4-3 ball game. The Phillies have life here in the 8th with only 1 away. Bryce Harper comes up, and you know what everyone's thinking. Okay, let's go. Bryce is going to leave the yard too. Well, Bryce goes ahead and strikes out. So now you're looking at 2 outs. Nobody on. 4-3. You still need to make hay after everything that's already happened. Nick Castellanos comes up and works a great at-bat to get on base and give everybody a chance. And then Rhys Hoskins doubles down the left field line. So here comes big old Nick Castellanos. And he's not heavy, but he's not exactly the fastest guy. Maybe a slightly above average player as far as speed. He does play the outfield. But he was laboring as he tried to score from first. Luckily, the throw hits him, slides in safely, and Nick Castellanos ties up the ballgame at 4-4 on the Rhys Hoskins RBI double to left. What an effort on the base path by Castellanos to get there because, man, he needed the oxygen after that one. Then, coming up next, with a runner on second and 2 outs, the momentum fully in the Phillies' way, a tie ballgame at 4-4. Hey, it doesn't matter if you tie it. It only matters if you win it. And that's exactly what Didi Gregorius did. He comes up, he hits a double to deep right center, splitting center field and right, and Rhys Hoskins scores easily from second, putting the game in the Phillies' favor at 5-4. Gene Segura would strike out to end the inning, and then Brad Hand would show up at the top of the 9th with a strikeout, flyout, strikeout performance, a 1-2-3 inning. No worries at all there, taking out Dominic Smith, McCann, Nimmo, go down in order, and just like that, the Philadelphia Phillies complete an amazing comeback against the Mets. It was a major choke job from the Mets, but hey, the Phils still had to take advantage of missed spots, and there weren't really many missed plays in the field. It was just frankly good hitting. It was a microcosm of what this team's going to be. They might struggle on the mound at points. The bullpen could be rough at points, even though they got a great effort from Nick Nelson in this one. And hey, the bats could go quiet for a lot of parts of games, but it only takes 1 inning. It only takes a couple of bats. It only takes a couple of swings. This team's so dangerous, you cannot count them out. And to all of you who went to bed early, because I know I talked to a couple people who were ready to call it in the 7th inning, can't be doing that with this team. You cannot afford to turn off Phillies baseball this year until the 27th out is recorded because, frankly, this team is just too dangerous at every single point of the ballgame. And last night, the New York Mets figured exactly what that means. So the Phillies moved to 3-1 on the year, 1-0 in the division, and just an amazing, amazing fight, an amazing effort from the Fightin' Phils last night in what is, so far, the seminal moment of the season. Of course, we're only 4 games in, but there's something to be said about building that momentum early and winning 1-run games. there's a great metric out there about one-run games and how you do in those. The great teams, they normally win a bunch of them. Well, the Phillies go ahead and notch that win, their first one-run game of the season, and they take home that victory. It was a great moment, and the result you cannot argue with. Everybody left the ballpark. Well, not everybody, because there were some Mets fans. There always are when our rivals from up there in the city come on down. But every Phillies fan left the ballpark happy last night. But it didn't exactly start that way. We got to go ahead and jump into what I'll call the bad, which will keep it to the on-the-field stuff about a rough start from Ranger Suarez and what in the world we've got to do with Alec Bohm at third base. I'll tell you about all that in just a second. Before that, though, I want to tell you about my friends over at BetOnline, because BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting stats and sports info. You can find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's basketball playoffs, which we got the play-in tournament starting this week, the actual playoffs start this weekend, and the start of the Major League Baseball season, which are already well underway. Hey, maybe put some money on the Phillies to win the series against the Mets. Go ahead and do that. You can do that over at BetOnline. That's because BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, from live betting to playoffs to esports and more. They got everything, casino games, all this type of stuff. Any way you want to bet your money, you can go ahead and find it at BetOnline. So head to the website today, or you can use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Okay, so we did the good. That was a fun segment to start out on, right? Well, now it's time to be a little realistic, and let's get into some of the bad. Now, I'm strictly talking about on the field bad. We're going to have plenty of time in the last segment to talk about what Alec Bohm was caught on camera mouthing and saying during the game and what his comments were after. Plenty of time to break that down. Just looking at on the field, though, of course, the bad we've got to start with is his defense. He had 3 errors through the first 3 innings. There was a point where he was on pace to have 9 for the game. It just you cannot play that level of defense at the major league level. It's straight up awful. It's unbelievable, really, and kudos to Joe Girardi, because Alec Bohm's walk is what started off the inning where the Phillies would ultimately come back, and Bohm still has not gotten out. So I'm not at all saying send the kid down, but you really, really got to think long and hard when you put him out there at third base. Is this the right move for this ball club anymore? It's a really weird situation, right? So because he can't field, you want to say, okay, let's put Stott out there. But Nick Castellanos and Kyle Schwarber are on this team now. One of those guys is basically always going to be DHing. And when they're not, it's going to be off days for JT, who will DH, Bryce Harper, who will DH, Rhys Hoskins, who will DH. So there's just a logjam at designated hitter. You can't just pencil in Alec Bohm at designated hitter every day, because the other guys are frankly more proven major league hitters than him. So how do you balance wanting to get a better defender at third base and still getting swings for Alec Bohm, while also wanting to get Bryson Stott more opportunities at the dish as a young player who you believe in a lot as a prospect? It's a very, very tough balance. I don't envy Joe Girardi's troubles here. What I would do is I would just flat out, I'd play Bohm on days where you've got a lefty on the mound. Otherwise, it's Stott when you have righties. I just play it that even. It seems like the simplest way to do it. I've almost considered, and we'll have to see what Bohm does in his next opportunity playing third base, but I've almost considered just sitting Bohm on the bench and saying, dude, take 2 weeks. Don't play the field. We'll use you as a pinch hitter. We'll maybe give you a DH opportunity somewhere, but we can't afford to put you out there in the field right now. What you absolutely cannot do is send him down. Because mentally, we've already taken a look at what he feels mentally right now as far as playing the game of baseball in the city of Philadelphia. Mentally, getting him sent down again would not be good for him. I've got to keep him at the major league roster. But after those 3 errors in the first 3 innings, it's hard to look at him and trot him back out there at third base again. You're almost doing him a disservice to put him in a situation where he has to field the baseball anymore. That was part of the bad. But it doesn't absolve what we saw from Ranger Suarez. And I already talked to you a little bit about Suarez being behind schedule because he had trouble with his visa. He got to spring training late. It was already a shortened spring training. So it's going to take some time for him to work back, more than, I don't know, we saw from Kyle Gibson, more than we saw in the first couple of innings from Aaron Nola. He's a little bit behind schedule. We're going to see Zach Wheeler tonight, who's the same way. So you have to be patient with these guys. And the other thing that's tough for him is he's got the expectations now of a season where he had a 1.36 ERA, and he's in the same era, the same conversation as some greats, some Hall of Famers, some all-timers with the numbers he put up last year. So that's got to weigh on him a little bit, even though he is a very stoic-seeming person. You got to imagine in the back of his mind, he's thinking about trying to repeat an almost unrepeatable performance that he had in 2021. But all of that aside, he comes out and he went down 3-0 to 3 hitters in the first 2 innings. It's very atypical of Ranger Suarez. He was not hitting his spots. He was losing a lot of stuff down. He was losing a lot of stuff out. I mean, he really didn't miss consistently either. There are times where pitchers will go out and they'll consistently miss up because they're overthrowing and the ball's just sailing on them and they're trying to throw really that hard. Or they're constantly dirting breaking balls because they don't have a feel of it. Suarez kind of looked like he didn't have a feel for anything. It's part of the reason his day was so short. And he threw so many pitches because not only was he getting bad defense behind him, but he wasn't throwing strikes at that high of a level, at that high of a percentage. Again, atypical of him. I'm not too worried about him in the future, but it's worth mentioning. He was not good command-wise, and he got big-time bailed out by the comeback. He also didn't get any help from his defense, though. So there's faults in 2 places. What we can't do is we can't use Alec Bohm to cover up Ranger Suarez's deficiencies, and we can't blame the full weight of the first inning and a rough second one that could have ended worse if the Phillies didn't get out of it. We can't blame that entirely on Bohm because Suarez was not at his best. So it's shared blame, probably more on the third baseman than the starter. But in the same way, Suarez is going to have to be better this year if he wants to help the Phillies get to where they need to be. They can't afford him to be rough at the start of games and regress like we saw last night. But hey, 1 game, that's all that matters. It was only 1 game, and they came out on top. It's not wiping responsibility and pretending like that stuff didn't happen and only looking at the good, but we need to take the bad with a grain of salt for where we are in the season. The only other bad thing that I saw that I want to mention is the approaches at the plate. Again, had trouble. This team is very, very aggressive outside of a couple players, this team being the Phillies. Kyle Schwarber sees a lot of pitches. Rhys Hoskins sees a lot of pitches. And that might be pretty much it. Bryce Harper does walk a lot, but normally it's him. I struggle to say he sees a lot of pitches because he does, but part of it is pitchers actively working around him because of how good of a hitter he is. Those other 2 guys I mentioned, Schwarber and Hoskins, they work walks. Bryce Harper, he does work walks sometimes. I'm not trying to take anything away from him, but his more so than those other guys is a product of guys not even wanting to throw anything near him. Bottom line is, those are 3 guys, and the Phillies have more than 3 guys that play for them last time I checked. This team needs to be more selective because you cannot go up there and give away easy outs swinging at bad pitches when you have this talented of a lineup. I know they can hit the ball out of the ballpark, and it seems like they're just going to go down swinging. Like they're going to swing out of their shoes until the final out, and that's just what this team is, and we're going to have to accept that. Maybe that's the case, but in doing so, you got to pick your spots a little bit better, I think, if you're the Phillies. This is 3 straight games now. Game 2 against Oakland, which they picked up a little bit later, but only scored 4 runs. Game 3 against Oakland, which is where they nearly got shut out if it weren't for the Gene Segura home run in the 9th inning. And this game against the Mets looked bad for a majority of it offensively. Of course, hitting takes time to catch up to pitching. At the start of the year, you always see scores lower, but I just love to see more selectiveness from the Phillies lineup in general. Not calling anybody out specifically, but just in general, I'd like to see them take a couple more pitches and work the pitch count a little bit more rather than bailing out opposing pitchers. That was the bad, though. Let's revert back to the good. It's like that the compliment sandwich where you say a good thing, a bad thing, a good thing. I'll say one more good thing on the back end of this. They came out with a win. That's all that matters. And it was a huge win. I'm very much nitpicking here, but you have to when the expectations are this high. And someone else who has high expectations is Lindsey Crosby with our Locked On MLB Prospects show. So thank you for making Locked On Phillies your first listen every day. I also want you to check out Locked On MLB Prospects because Lindsey Crosby knows everything. He'll tell you about high school players, maybe grade school players. No, I don't think so. But college players, draft eligible guys, international players, players in the minor league systems as minor league baseball continues their seasons on at those levels. A lot of exciting stuff that Lindsey Crosby has there, telling you about the MLB stars of tomorrow and some that are turning into stars of today right before our very eyes. So make sure you check out Locked On MLB Prospects. Okay, we've covered the good, the bad. Well, now it's time for the ugly, and I think you've all seen the video. On the other side, I'm going to break down exactly what happened with Alec Bohm, the mouthing he did that was caught on TV and broadcast out to everybody that became a viral sensation last night. And I'll give you my thoughts on how the young third baseman handled adversity last night. This episode's also brought to you by Rock Auto. So there's always new cars coming out, new vehicles, new makes and models and everything, new parts. Listen, I'm going to be honest. I don't know anything about the car I drive. And I'm just a normal guy. I'm sure a lot of you out there are like me. And what do you do when you need parts? Do you just walk down the street and go to your local store, one of those ones on the corner that you always see the name of and you always drive by? Well, guess what? You're getting ripped off and you're wasting your time. What I want you to do is save time and money by using rockauto.com. Why would you ever choose to spend 30%, 50%, or even 100% more when you could do it in a more convenient way by just using Rock Auto? Rock Auto is a family business. They've been serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years, and their prices have been reliably low the whole time. Gas is going up. Everything else is going up. No, not Rock Auto. Reliably low prices because they understand what the family business element is and helping out the everyday person like yourself. They have everything you need. So not only do they give you the great service of a mom and pop, but they have such a fuller inventory. It's awesome. They got everything you can need. So go explore their easy-to-use website today to find the solution to your auto part needs. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. And make sure you write Locked On in there. How did you hear about us box? So they know that we sent you in. They've got an amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. All right, I know what you're thinking. It's finally time to get into it. Yes, this is the most compelling thing outside of the comeback win, and maybe including the comeback win in last night's Phillies game. Regardless of the way that the Phillies won, it's still only one victory. I fully enjoyed it. I was losing my mind. If you saw my tweets at Connor Thomas 975, and I put a couple of them out from Locked On Phillies, I was going berserk, tweeting in all caps, freaking out because I was so excited about the win that the Phillies had. But it is only one win. And what Alec Bohm was seen mouthing and saying to Didi Gregorius on television that was broadcast everywhere was not a good look at all. It's something that needs to be addressed. So following one of the actually plays he made. So he had already made a couple errors on the night, but then he made a play, a routine one, and the crowd gave him one of those Philly sarcastic, hey, like crazy cheering for just a routine ground ball, mocking him almost, which is a typical thing you hear if you've been to Philadelphia sporting events. A player makes a bunch of mistakes, they make an easy play, and you cheer him like, finally, this guy figured it out, or at least he figured it out for the time being. Then the TV broadcast caught him mouthing. I'm not going to fully say it, of course. I don't want to hurt anyone's ears here, but basically saying, I hate this place, with an expletive thrown in there that I'm sure you've seen if you've seen the video. There was some talk about, is he saying, I hate those plays, or I hate this place? And normally I'd speculate which each of those mean, but Alec Bohm basically confirmed after the game in his availability in the clubhouse when the media scrum was around him that he said he hates this place. That's a problem. That's an issue if you really, to this level, do not like the place where you're playing. Here's where it's not an issue. And it's a non-starter of a conversation because Alec Bohm's post-game comments were incredibly mature, and he just flat out owned it. They were responsible, which is all you can really ask from a player. And the gist of his comments were that, yeah, I did say it. I apologize to the fans for saying it. I apologize in general for saying it. It's not how I truly feel. It was just a reaction in the moment. And in the moment, I let my emotions get the best of me. And he also doubled down saying he doesn't feel that way. And there was a follow-up question. So would you say you love it here? And he said, yeah, you can say that, laughing like that. So, of course, it's much easier to say that after you win a ball game, but it's very responsible of him to take ownership. It could have been very easy for him to just say, nah, you read it wrong, or no comment, or I don't want to discuss that. And that could have started a whole media frenzy surrounding the question, oh, does he really want to be here? How mentally fried is this kid? No, he came out and owned it. And all you can do is respect that and move on. It doesn't make him a better defender. It doesn't make him a better baseball player in general. And even though he's been good at the plate, it doesn't confirm that you should 100% continue to play Alec Bohm at third base. What it does do is it shows the kid is mature. He had an emotional reaction, which I think we've all had at some point or another. He owned up to it, and we move on. It's simple. In Philadelphia, we pride ourselves in being fans that are fair, one way or another. You suck, we boo you. You're good, we cheer you. It's fairness. It's the letter of the law of fandom in Philadelphia. And one of the letters of that law is when a guy owns up to a mistake, you let him own it, we move on. That's the responsible and respectful thing to do. I think that's how it'll be handled here in Philadelphia. Got no issue with the response at the end. I wish he hadn't have said it from the beginning, but let's be honest here. We're in the trust tree. I'm going to admit some stuff, and I need you to admit some stuff to yourself. As a fan of the Philadelphia Phillies, an organization that has for 10 years not made the playoffs, has done a bad job of drafting, and has rolled out lineups that have been non-competitive over the past decade of Philadelphia Phillies baseball, and is ultimately underachieved by franchise standards. This has nothing to do with this year's team in general, just talking about the organization in total over the past decade since 2010. Has there not been a moment where we said, man, I hate this team. Man, I hate Phillies baseball. Man, I hate baseball. It's an emotional reaction. We've all done it. Maybe it's your job. Maybe you're a diehard Phillies fan. You'd never say that. Well, you're going to your 9 to 5, and sometimes you get out and you sit in your car ready to make your commute home, or you close your laptop if you're working from home and you say, man, I hate this job. And you don't. You show up the next day and you put in the effort, but sometimes it wears on you. Alec Bohm is clearly in a very tough spot right now mentally, and it stems from his fielding. And he didn't appreciate the fans mocking him at that point. I felt it was earned how the fans reacted. And when you play that poorly in Philadelphia, that's what's going to happen. It's kind of the nature of the beast. But the fans handled it fairly. He handled it fairly. He owned up. We move on. We've all been there. Just be honest with yourself. You've had those moments too. It's not in a baseball game that's broadcast for tens of thousands of people, but you have had those moments. We all have. So let's just accept the apology. Let's move on. And let's worry about the on-the-field tangible stuff with Alec Bohm, which, again, this respect for how he handled this does not absolve him from his fielding errors. What it does mean is we respect the way, or at least I do, and you should too, respect the way that the kid handled a situation that he unfortunately placed himself in. That's it. We're wiping our hands of it. Until anything else comes up, we're not talking about this anymore. Non-starter, non-situation. Let's just be glad about the win. And the good news is we don't have that long to think about it because the Phillies take on the Mets again tonight, another 6:45 p.m. start. It'll be Tyler McGill against Zach Wheeler, making his first start of the year for the Phillies, the NL Cy Young runner-up. We get to see how he follows up that performance. Another exciting night at the Yard, and the Phils go for a chance to win their second straight series to start the year. This one in the NL East. I cannot wait to break it down for you and get all of that squared away. So make sure you're subscribed on YouTube. You're following on Twitter. You're liking, rating, reviewing both on YouTube and the podcast. Twitter, you can find us at ConnorThomas975. That's my personal. But of course, the main place to go is at LO_Phillies. Has all of our polls and questions and everything like that. Jump into those there. Rate, review, subscribe, do all of that good stuff. You know, you hear people say it all the time, but when you do that, you catch all of the great moments, like my immediate reaction to the Phillies to the Phillies comeback win, rather. It felt as exciting as a walk-off last night against the Mets. So make sure you're locked in for what's sure to be. If you didn't think before, you're sure of it now. It's sure to be an exciting season of Phillies baseball. Last thing I want to do is I want to thank you for making Locked On Phillies your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked On MLB. Paul Francis Sullivan, you know him as Sully. I know him as Sully. We all know him as Sully. He knows baseball inside and out. He's taking a deep dive into the major leagues in general. He knows the story of baseball. He's a great storyteller. He's a great proponent of the history of the game. Anything you can want. And he talks present as well and what's going on around the league. You can get all of that from Locked On MLB. It's a great show. It's available wherever you get your podcast. That's all I've got for you today. Tomorrow, it'll be another great show. Hopefully, we're talking about another Phillies victory, this time with a little bit less controversy. But we'll see you tonight at the ballpark. Until then, go Phils, and I will talk to you tomorrow.